Hello and welcome back to another lesson in math. So today we're going to be talking about finding the area and circumference of a circle. Now before we start that, let's talk a little bit about what the area, how you would find the area and perimeter of let's say a square. So I've got my nice little square there. And let's say the perimeter, let's say the sides are 5, 5. And you know that since it's a square, it's all the same. So I wouldn't need to write that next 5 there. So you would find let's talk about the perimeter. The perimeter is it's going to be all of this. All the sides added up, right? So to find the perimeter, it would be, you do 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5. Or you could just do 5 times 4. And the perimeter will be 20, whatever units that is. Units. Now, when we talk about area, we want to find the area that's encompassed by the perimeter. So all this area. So what we would do for square, to find the area, it would be, you would just do 5 times, you would just do one side multiplied by another side. 5 times 5 in this case. And that would come out to 25 units, and you would put it squared. So that's how you find the area for a square. But now this is a square. Now when we go to let me draw a nice little circle. A nice little circle right there. Now, as you could probably tell, you don't have that nice square shape, and you don't have these defined sides. You just have this one side that just goes on basically forever. So how would you find that? Now, let's talk about the perimeter first. So now finding this for a circle, you'd have to find you'd have to find this information from the midpoint of the circle, and you'd have this line, let's say, that extends from here to the other side. Now the length of the actual circle from that side to side, there's actually a name for it. It's called the diameter. The diameter. Now finding the actual circumference or the perimeter of that circle, you need to use the diameter. And there's a special formula that you have to use for that. It's going to be diameter times pi. Now what is pi, you might ask? It's not something, well, it is something that you eat, but in terms of a mathematical sense, a pi is a certain value for a number. It's going to be 3.1415 all the way up to infinity. But basically all you need to know is that it's 3.14. And let's say you were using a calculator. Most calculators would come with a specific function for pi, but if you were calculating this by hand, just know that you most likely only need to use the first 3 digits of pi, so 3.14. So you'd have diameter times pi, so that would be, well, let's give ourselves a diameter here. Let's give 10 as a diameter. So 10 times 3.14. Again, if you have a calculator, you could use the pi button and get an exact value. But if we're just using the first 3 digits, you know that it's going to be 31.4 units. That's the circumference. But now, how would we find the area? How would we find what's inside here? How would we do that? If you're thinking that we might have to use the diameter again, you're kind of on the right track, but we're actually not going to use exactly the diameter again. Instead, we're going to use half of it. So half of the diameter. There's actually a thing, there's actually a specific name for this as well. It's called the radius. Radius. Now, in terms of this case, the radius would be 5. And it's half of that because what we're actually going to do when we're finding the area, we're starting from this midpoint. We're going like this all the way around. We're starting from the midpoint and we're making these little sectors and we're finding the area within that sector. So if you would use the diameter, you would have to you'd have to add brackets in and you'd have to cut the diameter by 2. Let's get to another page so it's not so crowded in here. Let's draw that again. We have our circle. And we know that the radius is going to be 5. So there's actually another formula for this. And again, you're going to have to use pi for this, pi. And you're going to multiply it by the radius, but you're not just going to do that. You're going to square it. Again, it's like what I said before. Since we're finding this little section and we're going all the way around, you have to square it. So in this case, it would be 0.14 times 5 squared. And again, it's just going to be 3.14 times 25, right? Because we have to do the square there. So 3.14 times 25, it should be about 78.5 units squared. Should be the area. So yes, just remember that this is what you need to know when you're finding the area. Just remember that. Remember to use those. You'll most likely be given those questions if you were doing this in, let's say, class, or if you had to do this for a test. You'd most likely be given those numbers of the radius and diameter. And again, if you're only given one of those numbers, like let's say you're asked to find the area of the circle, and you're only given the diameter, which is 10. Well, you can just convert that to the radius to find the area, which would just be diameter divided by 2. And again, if you were only given the radius, let's say you were only given the radius, but you had to find the circumference, you can just radius times 2 equals diameter. I should put this radius here. Yes. Alright, so that was how to find the area and circumference of a circle, and come back again for another lesson in either mathematics or biology.